to my review of the Conn 88HNV. So a little bit of background for me. I've been playing Conns for about 24 years professionally, since I got the job in the remix ensemble in Portugal in 2000. Before that I was on an Edwards, which I really liked, but since about that time I've been using Conns non-stop. And I've gone through the whole L-cart thing. I've got an L-cart which has got a Hagman valve on it, which I love. I've got a Conn LT modern with a green hoe valve on it. I've got modern Conns standard. I've got a silver bell, solid silver bell SGX Conn. I've got lots of Conns. Oh, I've got a Lindbergh Conn as well, which is just behind the stand there. So I've got lots of Conns. I like Conns, and I sort of always, whatever I do, I'm totally open to new instruments, better instruments. I always end up coming back to a Conn. I'm not sure there is anything better than a Conn for me, but it's probably what I'm used to as well, of course. So the HNV, this was something that grabbed my interest straight away. I love my L-cart Conn, and I thought if they can make something new which is as good as that one from the 60s, then I'm in. So I got one to have a go on, and I've been playing this for about 2 weeks on approval, practicing hard on it, using it, and I thought I'd just share with you what I think of it. So let me just start by explaining a little bit about it. So it's a standard valve, it's a standard slide, it's a different bell, standard tuning slide, different wrap on the valve, okay? I can't detect any differences between this and a standard Conn 88H apart from the bell and the wrap. I think the valve even is exactly the same, okay? The bell thickness, I think, is what they're really going for here to try and create that L-cart feel. And to be honest, when you play this trombone, it does have that immediate sort of light warmth that an L-cart Conn does. And what I mean by that is, the more modern Conns have a thicker bell than the L-cart Conns used to. Of course, I'm sure the metal is different as well, slightly. But because they have that lighter bell, it's easier to manipulate the sound. And there is something different about the sound. When you play a Conn L-cart in a big room and you play a modern Conn right after it, they sound different. And for me, the easiest way to explain it is that the modern Conn is a bit more centered. There's more center to the note, but there's less overtone around the note, maybe something like that, with the effect that it slots a bit easier. I find that a modern Conn, it's harder to split notes on a modern Conn. And then the iterations of those modern Conns, like the development that Yamaha did with the Bousfield Yamahas, and now the Bousfield Getson, and the Shires. All those trombones slot more easily. They're easier to play than a Conn L-cart. They won't bite you if you're not on form, like a Conn L-cart will. But for me, there's still something about those old Conns which, in the sound, which they haven't, or no company that I've come across, have managed to replicate yet. And I'm sure that if you ask some of the players that are playing on those modern Getsons and all those Yamahas, they are easier to play and it makes life easier, which for a professional player is incredibly valuable. You don't want to split notes, you don't want to be playing out of tune, you want it to be reliable. But I think there's a compromise in the sound sometimes. It's tiny, but it's there. So this trombone, it's easy to play. You can create that kind of Conn L-cart effervescence in the sound. So that's very easy to play. It speaks easily. I can move between the notes in that register without much problem at all. If I try and play the same thing on the modern Conn, I'm hoping that with the Shure MV51 microphone over there, you might be able to hear a difference. So for me, that sound is sitting in the room, is a little bit warmer, it's a little bit more centered, but it hasn't quite got this kind of transparent effervescence, maybe, perhaps. I mean, of all, in my house, Beth Calderbank is my partner and we're both professional trombone players, and we've got umpteen Conns like this. This is actually her one, which she's been playing every day for years and years and years and years. It's massively blown in. It's the best one that we've got by a mile. It's got a very thick bead on the bell, which I always notice, which I haven't seen on any of our other modern Conns like this. I don't know if it was a mistake in the factory or if there was a certain period where they did that, but it makes a big difference. And this one is particularly centered and warm sounding. And it was the best contrast between all of them for the HNV that I've got here. So the instrument is open in all the registers, except the trigger. Now, that feels like it's kicking back. When I pull the trigger in on this trombone, it's kicking back at me. Whereas this one, with the same effort, I end up with a bit of an accent on the start of the note. This one takes the air off me a bit more. So it must be to do with the shape of the wrap, right? I mean, so with this HNV, it's the same valve as far as I'm aware. I can't detect any difference. It's got a wooden thing for your thumb on it. Well, that's very nice, isn't it? You know, okay, lovely jubbly. But they've put this bend in the wrap. So they've got a lovely open wrap, look, all the way up, but they've put this tight bend in it. And I think that must be what's causing some resistance or some of the resistance when I play with the trigger. So that's disappointing for me. For me, my favourite trombone that I've ever had probably is an 8H. I've had an Elkhart 8H and a modern 8H, and both of them were fantastic. I just can't use them anywhere because I always need the trigger. So that's why I ended up having an Elkhart with a Hagman valve on it. I've got an Elkhart with a Greenhoe valve, and I've got the Christian Lindbergh valve. It's because I'm trying to get the trombone to play like an 8H, but with a trigger on it. And so I hoped that perhaps with this bit of thought that they've given here, and that this looks a bit like the Getson and it looks a bit like a Shires, I thought that maybe, and it looks like the Greenhoe as well, I thought that maybe we were going in the direction of an open plug on an Elkhart playing trombone, but alas, that isn't what's happened. So that's frustrating for me. I'm like, I want the trigger to be open. And I think that when I've been playing this trombone, that is the thing that's stopping me buying it, is that trigger just isn't quite open enough for me. I want it to be open and beautiful and to be able to play in the low register without much resistance, and it's just not doing that for me. But the rest of the instrument, in fairness, is beautiful. When I touch it, I play for the first time, the sound is like, oh, that's really nice. It reminds me of my Elkhart. I've played the Elkhart next to it, and they feel quite similar, to be fair. But obviously, because I've got a Hagman valve on my Elkhart, it's really open, and this just is not really. I mean, that's open in the low register, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, the high F flies, it's no problem at all. If you're doing a Rhenish or something. Sorry, I split one in there, but the high register there is beautiful. There's no problems with it. I can soar around. It's pretty safe. I feel good in that register. It slots okay. It's good. It's really good. I'm just so frustrated with the trigger. Why don't you put an open trigger on it? I don't think there's anything wrong with this. This valve is good. It's good on this trombone. It's good on that trombone. But in the trigger register, there's resistance in that one and there's not in this one. So I fear that if I was in the shop now and I was buying a brand new Conn and I had these two on the stand, and maybe the lightweight version of this would play a bit similar to that, but I find that a little bit unwieldy. I do find the lightweight bells a little bit too light. I think I would end up choosing the standard Conn with the open wrap, unfortunately, which is a real shame. I really wanted this to work. I really, really wanted that to work. I wanted to be able to go and, with all the guys who've got the Getsons and the Shires and all the rest, and go, aha, Conn have done it. they've recreated my old one that none of you can get because I had it made and doctored by Mr. Tuber. But unfortunately, they haven't quite done it. It's a good trombone, don't get me wrong. It gets 8 out of 10, but those last 2 points are for the trigger, and unfortunately, it's not working so great off the stand out of the box. Maybe 15 years of blowing it in and the trigger would be open. So it's a real shame. I'm disappointed with it, to be honest, but it is a good trombone. It's good, and it comes in at £3,499 in the UK at the moment. The standard one is £3,199. One of those Getz and Bousfields is about 4,500, I think. A Shires is 5,000. So it's competitive in terms of price. And maybe this one is a bit more closed than the others are, because other reviews I've seen and people talking about it, they say it's open. But for me, it's not as open as I want it to be. But nonetheless, it's a good trombone. It's very nice. And if I do the same thing on the modern Conn, so in the relatively small room that I'm in, the sort of warmer sound of the thicker bell is working on that for me with this instrument a little bit more. But there we have it. So the Conn 88HNV, it's a nice instrument. It's a Conn, it's well made, it does what it's supposed to do. I really hope that this would be a superstar, and I don't think it's going to be at the front of the stable. But there we go. Anyway, look, I really hope you've enjoyed the review. I'm sorry if you don't agree with me. It's only my opinion, it's only what I think, it's only what I've found. And it might only be this trombone. I haven't tried 10 of them in a row, it's just this one. But for my money, the HNV is not quite as good as the normal 88H with an open wrap. Thanks very much.